secret to scale a business is to build systems. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the secret book that made fortunes and that made people save time, scale their business, and actually build an asset that works for you instead of you working in it. This book, of course, is The Toyota Way by Jeffrey K. Liker. We spoke about this book a few weeks ago in our videos when we were doing a tier list of best books for operational excellence and business scalability, but this one actually is one of the foundational ones. And I want to deep dive with you on the 14 principles that are shared in this book and go deeper on them and see how we can take those principles that apply to a car manufacturing. And you're gonna be like, Alex, why do we talk about cars? I'm like building houses, or I'm selling carpets or like couches to people, or doing some professional services. How those things apply to me? Well, it's not about the cars. The system that was built by Toyota is replicable to most of them, and the principles are universal. So I want to jump into the presentation here. So most probably you're working 60 hours a week. Your phone won't stop ringing. Your team keeps making the same mistakes. Sometimes they get burned out, or you have a huge amount of work in the month of May, but then let's say in September it all drops and it's like super complicated. And then on the other side, meanwhile, you have Toyota, who builds like millions of cars per year, and they do that with near zero defects. Although, like last week, one of the clients told me that he bought a Toyota Tundra, and surprisingly, it wasn't able to pull the trailer that they bought for their construction company, and the crew was complaining because even the motors weren't adapted for that type of work, so they returned it. But anyway, I was quite surprised about it. But usually Toyota, if you have a Toyota Yaris or a Quad, like, they're known to be very reliable, and that's because they have a way to create excellence on their factory floors. So everything you're about to learn in this video also applies to small businesses, and I think actually even better than you might imagine. So the thing that you need to understand is that the word that can characterize what Toyota is doing is continuous flow. Why flow is important? Well, because flow is something that creates predictability, which is very important, and flow creates a chain reaction where everyone gets in sync. It's not like drops of water. It's like really you create a river of value that flows across your value chain. It's very important. But for that value to happen, you can't have things built in isolation. You can't optimize just your scheduling, or just your build, or just your inspection. You actually need to optimize for the whole chain, the node and the link within it. Because what most people don't realize is that you can delegate, you can give the work to the right people, but if they are not properly orchestrating the work between them, and time is lost in between steps, well, on average, handoffs eat 70% of your time. And so even if the tasks work fine, the coordination doesn't. So how do we get there, and how do we solve that situation where you have no waiting, no confusion, no rework? So let's break down the 14 principles from Toyota, the Toyota Way. So instead of you reading the book, of course, read the book. It's a fantastic book. But this is kind of a resume. They have 4 sections in the Toyota Way book. There's the first one, which is the base, is that you need to have a long-term philosophy in your company. So you can't be doing decisions that are short-term, because you won't create that culture that helps you scale and deliver value to your business. So one of the things that you need to shift right away is not look at quarterly profits or just costs. You need to see investment in your value chain as actual investments with ROI. Sometimes things that are really good for your business take time to pay off, and they're not the first order consequences. So you need to have that long-term vision and go this way. Then the right process equals the right result. I think this is like the most important learning that you can get from this book, is that the right process and the chain of processes is very important. And so what you want is like what they call the continuous flow. So where you eliminate waiting between the tasks, because waiting and idle time is a waste. Then a pull system, so build what is needed when it's needed. Another thing that we could add here is like a synonym to the pull system is customer obsession, that you obsess about the expectation and you work backwards. And your expectations for the customer pull the rest of your system. So you only execute when and what is needed based on the promise that you make to your customer. So if you really clearly define who you are and what the expectations are, you have to embed those expectations and make them pull the rest of your value chain, the rest of your teams, to be working on alignment with those expectations. We have a fantastic technology that we built at Anchor Point that actually helps you put all those expectations in everyone's eyes, in front of everyone's eyes when they work, to make sure that you are actually on time and with the right quality. So yeah, then level workload. So this is also about managing expectations. If you can level your workload, you can balance your demand and your output and your backlog, and then you can like adjust your workload to make sure that your teams don't burn out. I think this is one of the best decisions you can make in terms of the cost efficiency of your business, and most importantly on the morale of your team. One of the things that you don't want to happen is that you have days where you work 12 hours a week and then another day you work just 2 hours a week. So sometimes you burn out your people, and other times you underutilize them. So on Toyota standards, this is not good. And they have a specific word for that, which is Seijuka. Yeah. Anyway, if you want the right pronunciation of that thing, just go read the book. Another principle is that you have to solve the problems as early as possible within the value chain. You don't let defect travel down the value chain. Honestly, when I was working with the the architects behind Amazon supply chain systems, Apple and Wayfair, and even when I was working at Essence, like the leadership was always like hammering down this idea on people's head. Never let defects travel up the supply chain. Try to fix them as early as possible and don't redo the work again. So if you can build systems that help your team do the work properly once, and then make sure that if there's a defect, it's flagged, it's solved, and then it moves there, fantastic. You will save so much money. It's incredible, and especially with so much time and trouble. But to do that, you need to standardize your tasks, and you usually need to use visual cues. So there's a fantastic principle, once again, coming from Japan, as Japanese understood something very well, called the 5S. So this is your way to sort, standardize, set in order, sustain, and then anyway, I forgot the abbreviations, but it's something that will help you keep your workspaces or even your UI screens organized and really focused on things that matter. So if your working desks are messy, if your people, when they do need to do some back office work or even inventory work, it's a mess, you have your first indication. No technology will save you in that front. Just go and fix and clean your workstations. So for that, visual control is super important, and very very good point. Proven technology. Toyota said that they will never risk implementing something that is not proven or not verified. So when you implement some new AI solutions and all those tools, sometimes you will actually waste money. There's a statistic that you might have seen last year that came from MIT that said 95% of AI projects failed in the implementation. That's not a surprise. It's because usually the technology isn't proven, people don't really understand it, and anyway, there's an art in terms of building a custom product to someone. There are people who know how to do it, like we do, and some people who improvise, and break their teeth. But again, all that is very pretty, but you need people to execute. And as we said, the most reliable way to scale a business is to focus on who, not the how. And so the who is your people, and your people, you need to keep them, you need to develop them, you need to cut the churn, and you want to create an environment where they thrive, and they're very motivated. If you remember the book from High Output Management by Mr. Grove, he said that you need to optimize only two things. As a manager, you have a job. It's two things. You increase on the x-axis the individual capacity of the person, and on the angle the degree of motivation. And the right you go and the higher you go, well, your productivity will increase. So if your people are motivated and they are very capable, well, their productivity will be the highest as possible. They'll become A players. So in that sense, you need to grow leaders internally. They know your reality. They'll figure out even edge cases, even if you don't have a system or processes for that, and they'll make sure that they apply all those Section 2 principles about the process. Then, one single person can't work, so you need to develop teams, so that the philosophy is carried across your whole value chain. You can't have department silos. Silos are very bad. A particularity about Canada sometimes is that people are very conflict averse. So what I often see when I work with some companies is that people won't say the truth to each other. And so sometimes it's not good if you are not radically transparent and don't have the right relationship, so that people can give honest feedback to each other. So when you implement systems, it's as much about the people and how like their relationship and how they work, etc., and the trust that you build, rather than just putting the right people with the right task. And of course, your business is not only your internal people and your teams, it's also your partners. And partners can also be a client. A client can be a partner. When we work with our clients, we are partners. When I have a supplier of, let's say, a technology solution that helps us be more productive, they're also partners, and we need to challenge them and expect the best out of them. So you need to have systems and portals that help you do that at scale, and to make sure that when you make a promise to your customer, that promise and those expectations also are aligned with your suppliers. Another case study that I really like that comes from France is Decathlon. Decathlon, they are amazing at supply chain execution. They know to the most granular thread that goes into their shoes that they make or their product for the sports, who is doing them, where they're doing them, and they actually know their financial projection, they know their demand planning, etc. They have full control on their partnership, and they care as much about their partner success as they care about their own business. If you can develop those type of relationship with your partners, I guarantee you'll have a very easy time scaling your business. Voilà. And then there's the section 4, which is solve root problems. So there's always like a state of clarity and performance of your process at a given stage. So but there's always improvement. Another quote that I really like that was shared a lot in my previous careers by great leaders was, there are wounds in your business and there are like paper cuts. And paper cuts, there's a lot of them. But you really need to focus on that 80-20, like the Pareto, on what are the things that are really the most important and what are the paper cuts. But still, don't like neglect paper cuts, but because at some point when you fix the wounds, those paper cuts, and as you scale, the paper cuts can become big wounds. So anyway, what I'm saying is, you have to personally invest in the culture of constantly monitoring what can be the feedback and the improvement of your process. So when you document your process, keep it very simple. It's input, process, output, plus feedback. And the feedback will help you improve and create that continuous improvement loop. So I go a little, ahead of myself, but you have to decide slow, but really matters, with a good consensus. If you want to have the GOAT of the consensus, it's Ray Dalio. how do you create companies with the right decision systems. It's amazing. So spoiler alert, it's just making sure that around the room you have the most believable person and that you have a track record of them making good decisions. And if that person is in the room and they put their opinion, it's the idea meritocracy. So the best idea wins, no matter the level of seniority, but still track record matters, you know. And then reflect and improve. It's the Kaizen forever. So, I mean, okay, maybe you don't see what I'm showing. It's okay. Let me move my face. Whoopla. No, it's not that I wanted to do. Okay, voila. Let me move me here. Okay, so in the end, if we have to summarize, there was a Toyota journey that spans across like decades. So they started their TPS systems in the 50s. They had their first success in the 1965. Then they went into global expansion. Around that time in the 80s, you know, there was it was in the 70s, 74, 75, the oil shock. And then in the 80s, the market, especially in in the United States, started to be flooded with those cheap Corollas, but that were really reliable. And so North American car industry couldn't compete. So they perfected the system and it became a huge, wake-up call for other manufacturers in the world to listen. There's something that the Toyota way is doing right that we should be doing. At your scale, you don't have to wait decades to implement this. Maybe you have between 25 and maybe at maximum 200 employees. At least this is who I'm speaking to. So in your current state, the implementation is very simple. So you start with your people and your process, and you map your current state of the value chain. We have a few videos that explain, what is a typical value chain in e-commerce, in construction business, etc., etc. If you don't see your supply chain that you want me to review, let me know in the comments. It will be a big pleasure. Then, with the advances of AI, I hope you weren't living under a rock, but the ability now to build proprietary systems that are adapted to you is amazing. And by the way, there's going to be that question about, you want me to build a custom system for you? Well, yes and no. What I'm saying is, it's generic software never works for especially operation. It works for a very point solution like accounting. You take QuickBooks for, there are many softwares like Slack for communication, Notion for document management, and all that stuff. So they're very solid softwares, and we'll never compete against them. But when it comes to the actual value chain and the orchestration of your, resources and help you from the lead to cash, this is where no generic software will actually fit you specifically. This is where, if you buy a generic ERP, you will quickly see that you will live with 47 plus Google Sheets to compensate for the gaps that you have. And the main reason is that if you do that, you won't actually enable continuous flow. Unless, continuous flow is very easy on the production line for cars, but it's less complicated where, for example, if you have a very specific process like, you sell doors and windows that are personalized with custom measures to a client, and then you need to order them with your manufacturer, then receiving them, and then send a crew to install them, and then etc. etc. You can see how those things can be quite complicated as you scale. And you can, of course, then purchase a procurement software, then inventory management software, then a warehouse management software, etc. But those costs, they climb up, and then you need the integration, and then very rapidly you would need the tech team. Anxiety, it's too complicated. And in any way, you'll need training, and your people will resist. So most of the people in your situation, maybe that's why you didn't implement the right technology in your company, is because no one had the right offer. And I was a small and medium-sized business owner. I had a painting company when I was at university, over 10 years ago. And so I wished, to have a system that helped me, anchor my promise that I made to my customers, and then work backwards and organize the rest of my, delivery chain, the value chain. But before I didn't have the skills. Now I do have. So, and what we are doing is like from my experience of working at ABB, at Essence, with consulting firm, etc. I took like the best elements, some best elements from other books and the leaders that mentored me, and we put it into our OpsOS. It's our custom ERP system, ERP, CRM, back office tool. Like honestly, we call it the operations operating system. And what we do is like we help you go live with that in 90 days. That's our promise. Like we covered the whole end-to-end value chain for you. It becomes your source of truth, and then there are like proprietary algorithms that we call the Swiss clock precision or the magic pile, whatever you call it. Anyway, what you care about is that we implement that system and you actually adopt it and you see results, or we work for free after those 90 days. And so if you want to see how we can take all those core principles, first principles, and implement it for your business, go in the description below. There's going to be a link. Book your meeting, and I'm going to be very excited to speak with you.